Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Catholic OCD Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Nolfi. Today we have a topic of, can a woman be ordained? Can a woman be a pastor? Can a woman be a priest? What does the Bible say? What does the Catholic Church say? What do other people say about this topic? We have our buddy Curtis here in the studio with us today. We're going to discuss this, so stay tuned. Hope you guys enjoy the show. I'm sure this is going to be a topic that makes me popular with the ladies. So, if you're watching this show and you're a chauvinistic piece of crap like me, don't forget to subscribe so you can get more caveman theology from yours truly. I'm just joking. I'm not a chauvinistic pig. But this is a deep topic, and this is something that's really debated among the Christian world today. Obviously, it has more, I'm going to say, problems in Protestantism than we're going to see in Catholicism or Orthodoxy. But we also do have rebels in Catholicism when it comes to this topic. So one of the things that I want to talk about in describing this topic is, these are two fancy words, but I want everybody to understand the differences when it comes to this argument. Is there's kind of two major schools of thoughts. There's what's known as the Egalitarian viewpoint, and then there's what's known as the Complementarian viewpoint. So what do those terms mean? Well, so I am a complementarianist, if I'm saying that right, which basically means that I believe that men and women are created equal. Men are not better than women. Men are not, just superior in nature to women. Men and women are both created equal. We are both created in the image and likeness of God. We are both created with equal value and equal dignity. But we are different. And our differences are not limited to our private parts, let's say. It's not just for reproductive reasoning that we're different, but we're actually different in our nature. And God basically made male and female, kind of picture like the yin and the yang, where they kind of go together. They fill each other's gaps. They both have different gifts that they offer to each other when it comes to becoming one flesh in the sacrament of marriage. And while they are equal in dignity, I'm going to hold the position that there are certain rules, certain duties or positions that are actually limited to the male position. Now, the other side to this, the other position, is what's known as egalitarianism. And what this is the idea that men and women are not just equal in value or equal in dignity, but they're equal in all duty and positions. So there's no position that a man can have in the New Testament church or the New Covenant church that a woman can't have. That women can be ordained, women can serve communion, women can consecrate the communion in some of the Protestant traditions. Women can be pastors. Women can do anything that a man can do. And the understanding from the egalitarian viewpoint is going to be that when Christ comes, that basically he erases the whole patriarchal hierarchy of the Old Testament, and that he basically frees women from the shadows that we saw them not having the rights or the ability or the freedom to hold certain positions in the Old Testament. The egalitarian point of view is going to say that in the New Testament Christianity that women are able to be brought forth front and center and that they can do anything that a man can do. So we got our man Curtis here.
Howdy.
How you doing, Kurt?
Doing pretty good. It's a beautiful day.
That's good.
Good.
That's good.
How are the Cavs doing? Good at all? I'm just wearing this hoodie. I don't actually know.
I only watch. If it's not the Chiefs, I don't watch. So I don't. If Patrick Mahomes starts playing for the Cavs, then I'll watch the Cavs. But so now we talked a little bit. What was that? Last week? 2 weeks ago?
I think it was last week. Last week sounds about right.
You came to my house and we basically had a little discussion, and I didn't even know at the time, but basically you kind of are going to hold more of the egalitarian viewpoint, would you say? Are you undecided?
Undecided might be a good way to put it. I might lean more egalitarian perhaps, but
okay. So you're already siding with the women and all of a sudden you're undeciding. You're having trouble making a decision. Shocker. Okay. But
this brought to you by Liquid Death.
Yeah. So we're drinking these. Hold that up. So we use AJ's studio, and I went into, his kitchen to find something to drink. We just wanted water, and these are not beers. They're not Miller Lite. There's nothing wrong with having, nothing wrong with having a beer, but this is actually water. But I don't know. It's called Liquid Death. I've never had one. I let Curtis drink his first to actually see if it literally is Liquid Death. And
so far, I'm okay.
If he lives for the next 5 minutes, then I'll crack mine open and start drinking it. So what makes you take the egalitarian point of view? And actually, before you even get the opinions out, if you're listening to this conversation, you're automatically you're ready to quote a Bible verse. Like, wait a minute, Paul says this. You're right. So let's get some of these verses out of the way. Let's not out of the way, but let's go through some of these major verses that people are going to bring up. And it's funny because they're, mostly from Paul, let's say. So the first thing I want to do is we're going to get a reading done. So I'm going to go to 1 Timothy. So in 1 Timothy, this is in chapter 2, starting in verse 11, where Paul writes, now remember, Timothy, so 1 Timothy, 2 Timothy, and Titus, these are known as the pastoral letters. So these are, known as the letters in which Paul is giving instructions for ordination for, I would say, as a Catholic, apostolic succession, the laying on of hands, and basically who can be a presbyter or an elder and who cannot, who could be a bishop and an overseer. So in this context, he's basically saying that, presbyters or elders, which in the Catholic viewpoint, an elder is basically a priest. Priests are the presbyters. That's the original Greek word. That's going to be a different understanding than, let's say, like in Curtis's church, where an elder is going to be more, not so much a sacramental position of a leader or teacher, but more of serving on the board membership and voting authority. Would you say I'm right?
Yeah. Obviously they lay hands and they pray over them and install them as the new elder. So if you would call that sacramental, then maybe, but
not so
in the
much
same sense as perhaps.
Well, I'm saying your elders not pretty much taking the position of baptizing people, and he's not taking the position of I'm not even at this point questioning the valid ordination or the laying on of hands,
right?
But I'm talking about he's not going to get up and try to consecrate the Eucharist or hear confession or baptize people. An elder's more of a kind of like a voting position of leadership in the church.
You'd say voting, sure. They help make the decisions, and
okay. So
like that.
Right away, we're going to distinguish that between like a Catholic or Orthodox understanding of a presbyter, or even really like a Lutheran position, Anglican. They're all going to view presbyters as basically like, these are the priests. This is the position that comes off that's different than a bishop, basically. But in that sense, Paul's going to say that presbyters should be men of but one wife, not drunkards and not greedy and stuff like that. But so then in 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 11, he says, a woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet, for Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety. So in this verse here, to me, it seems kind of off the cuff, like if you're looking at it, like it seems kind of clear, like Paul's basically saying, he's not saying women can't like teach. He's saying women can't have this teaching authority over a man. Like I, as a Catholic, I was really mainly encouraged to Catholicism from a woman, from Mother Angelica. She taught, she would sit on live TV, and she would teach, millions of people live during the night, teach from the scriptures. Obviously, we see tons of, I teach CCD with the nuns.
Yeah, that's some good distinctions to make first, is that we do see women teachers, women prophets. We see, some would say even women apostles, some would say that. But I know that the Catholic Church does not say that. Some would say that, but the real question, I guess, comes with the sacraments, as you would put it.
And not just sacraments.
A lot of the big questions is...
But authority.
Right. Do you have to have authority to say, to lead in the Mass? So what would you call it? Leading the liturgy? Or I like the alliteration of that.
Yeah, so basically, the preaching at Mass can only be done by the priest, bishop, or a deacon. A deacon. Again, these are all ordained men. Now, a woman can go and read. She could do one of the New Testament epistle readings or an Old Testament reading, but she's not going to read the gospel, and she's not going to give the sermon, nor could any layman. Like, this is for the ordained people. Now,
is that holding authority, though?
That is holding a teaching authority, because this is a teaching that's coming not from like a Bible study, not from just like Mother Angelica sitting on a chair, teaching on a TV show. This is actually the position of authority in the Christian liturgy. And this is why this is set apart for the ordained person inside, partaking inside the Christian liturgy of the Mass. The other thing that I think that we see with this authority over man is let's look at it from disciplinarian viewpoints. So one of the things that I think, and this brings up another point, but like one of the things that kind of has disappeared, I think, in a lot of more modern Christianity is the biblical practice of excommunication. So like excommunication literally means like you're not welcome to the Lord's Supper anymore. You've been fellowship. And Paul's very clear on when Christians need to excommunicate people who are unrepentant. It's not because somebody's struggling with sin. It's like they're unrepentant with their sin. They're not going to change. They know that they're living in sin.
Yeah.
They don't care. Obviously,
I feel real bad for the guy who says, hey, Father, I'm really struggling with this. Get out. Just get out. Don't even come back. It'd be horrible.
Well, but it's not so much that. It's more of like, Father, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just doing this.
Apathy.
I'm living how I want to live. I don't really care. And at this point, the church is going to lay down rules saying like you should not take communion. But a priest could stand and deny you communion. A bishop can actually, have you can be excommunicated from the church. Is that a biblical principle? Is excommunication a biblical New Testament practice, would you say?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay, so that brings up the second question. Can a woman have authority to excommunicate a man?
It would appear not.
So that right there, if it appears not biblically, then does that one verse crush the egalitarian viewpoint?
No.
No. So why? So you're saying you're actually believing that the Bible says that a woman does not have the ability to excommunicate a man, like she doesn't have this.
I don't believe
authority.
they're allowed to have authority, right? Authority over a man, which is a lot different than saying, hey, you're allowed to teach, you're allowed to preach. You can't hold authority, right? So I get the whole idea of the sermon cannot be given by, I understand why. To suggest that they can't read the gospel or teach from that would be a whole different case. And preaching, a lot of times, by the way, I think there's some confusion on preaching and teaching. I don't even understand all the differences, but I know that a teaching is more like, sure, they mix a little bit, but my understanding is preaching is more, lost the word. It's almost like expanding on the word, giving us ways to
instruction
implement it into our lives. Instruction, yes. And teaching is more like trying to understand the word itself. Just, this is what this means. This is what the Greek was. This is how it was implemented back then. This is how people have taken it since. This is, the evolution of it.
Well, I think that where you get one of the distinctions is that when you're giving it for instruction, like this is how you need to live. And when you go to a Catholic Mass, a lot of times it's not just a teaching, but it's an instruction how to live. Mm-hmm. And this is being said from the position of a pastor or a shepherd to the sheep, as a pastor to his flock. And that's why, in that reason, is one of the reasons where not just women can't do it, but I can't do it as a layman because I'm not in that shepherd position. Now, the church is going to say, okay, after Mass or before Mass, we're going to have a teaching like little series, and this woman or Nick Nolfi is going to do something. The church says, that's fine. I'm not, like I've taught at our church, I'm not taking a shepherd position as far as instruction to the flock. I'm not taking that. I don't have the right to do that. I'm not an ordained person. So I'm not saying that my complementarian viewpoint as a Catholic is not saying that a woman can't teach anything or that a woman can't, give like a lecture. I believe that they could. I believe they're women who were healers. I believe there were women who had prophecies, women who had visions.
Yeah, that's an important distinction, as I said earlier, is that I don't think a lot of complementarians, I don't think that they're saying women can't be the prophets or, have a healing ministry or, things of that nature. I don't think that's what they claim at all.
No, they're saying that they can't have
Yeah, exactly.
but the difference then, the distinction comes with the complementarian or the egalitarian viewpoint is going to be that there is no position that a man can have that a woman can't have. So in this first verse that we read, in looking at the idea of the rule of church discipline, let's bring into that the idea of excommunication. Does it seem that the Bible's saying that women don't hold that position? Women cannot enforce excommunication on any man. They don't have that position.
Yeah, I would have to say, yeah, it would appear so. And I don't want to take a complete stance on it because I'm just not entirely sure.
And that's fine.
But yeah, once we've gone through all of this clarification, I don't see why complementarianism and egalitarianism are that far away. I mean, obviously, if you're very liberal and you go to, some of those other churches with questionable theology, I get it. Like, no, we can't even. It's got to go all the way. Women can do whatever a man can do.
But literally is.
That's
egalitarianism.
That is full on egalitarianism.
I would say that's basic egalitarianism.
Really? You think that's basic?
Yeah, because
that basic is just women can hold, a pastoral position, and that's fine. I'm talking like egalitarianism to its fullest extent of.
It means they're equals. So why could a man?
Yeah, and
do something and a woman can't do if they're equals.
I may believe that a man or a woman can be a pastor. Let's say I believe that.
But what kind of pastor?
But I won't believe that they're completely the same. Men are, let's say, more aggressive and women are more compassionate. I think women should be the ones that stay home to take care of the kids and men should be the ones that go to work. I'm not saying women can't work. I'm saying that out of the two of them, who should stay home? It's the woman.
And you're getting that from Paul again and Timothy. You get
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's full on egalitarianism. Says nope. That's heck. Even the man should stay home and the woman could go to work.
Well, I think that my position, even as a complementarianism or complementarianist, would say I don't think that it's so. When Paul says that women need to make sure they take care of their duties at home. Obviously, if you're a mother or you're a wife, you have certain duties at home. I have certain duties at home as a male. I got to cut the grass. I got to do stuff. I can't just say well, I go out to work, so I'm not going to cut the grass. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to take care of anything around our house or in our household. My work's only out there. I still have certain duties that I have at home. And a woman or a wife or mother, I think, biblically speaking, even from the Old Testament, where it talks about how, because these people were more, in biblical times, a lot of times you're not going out to work. You're working in home. A lot of these people were agricultural. Women did things. They sold things, the Bible talks about. They did activities with commerce and things like that. They could have other projects outside of the home, but they had to make sure they took care of their home duties. So you can't be I'm just going to neglect my home at all, all the way. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm saying this as a complementarianist, or a complementarian, I'm saying this. So I don't think that that's egalitarianists aren't just saying that women can go to work. I think if they're saying that there's no distinction at all.
Right. That's bigger than just going to work. I agree with you on that.
So let's go back to the same question then. Can a woman hold a leadership position in a church where she can govern the church or excommunicate
Well, once again, I come back to it doesn't appear so.
Okay. I would say if that's true, and even if you're saying like women are great, this and that, it's just a hair difference, I would say that you're not an egalitarianist.
Okay, so just
this is my
take that
opinion.
right off the table then. I mean, if that's the case, right?
Just because you're saying you see a distinction when it comes to leadership positions. And that's going to, so let's go to the next verse then, which is going to be Ephesians chapter 5. And in this is going to be verse 21 through 33. Okay, so submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Now, you have to understand, right away, this is radical for that time.
Yeah.
For Paul to be saying husbands and wives submit to each other, like women were viewed as like they had no rights, at all. So understand even my viewpoints, like how far I think the New Testament came from the Old Testament tradition. Paul's actually saying, and even if you're a Greek at this time, or especially like a Roman, you had no rights at all as a woman. So Paul's talking about this mutual affection for each other and this mutual idea of like wanting to help each other. Okay, so submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit yourselves to your own husband as you do the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In the same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated their own body, but they fed and care for their body, just as Christ does the church. For we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you also must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So I think that the clear teaching of this, and it could be mistaken a lot of different ways. So you could have a guy saying like, listen there, it says you're supposed to submit to me. And I wanted a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with strawberry jelly. And you gave me grape jelly, flip out. And that's, if you read that, you're missing the whole point. Now, also, if you read the first verse, like, well, we're supposed to submit to each other. And so therefore, like everything else Paul just continued to say, like that means nothing and we're all equals. You missed the point.
It is a mutual submission, but what does it look like is the question.
Yeah, so this is the question. Like, Christ is the bridegroom. The church is the bride. So does Christ just like boss around his bride? No. Christ dies for his bride. That's the mission. So submission. So the wives are supposed to submit to the husband, meaning they're supposed to be under the mission of the husband. And the mission of the husband should be to die or to sacrifice his being and his life for his wife and for his family.
It's a hefty...
That's a big cross to bear.
Big cross.
So as Christ, Christ was king, but Christ was crowned on the cross. So a husband is the head of the home. That's what Paul said. If you're like, oh, that's chauvinistic. Well, you know what? Don't believe in God. I don't know what to tell you. Don't read the Bible. That's what Paul exactly said. The husband is the head of the wife, just as Christ is the head of the church. But your throne as a man is not the lazy boy. It's the cross. And your life should be a sacrifice for your wife, for her well-being, for your children. And your wife should be a helper in your mission to live as a living sacrifice for your family. That really is the complementarian viewpoint.
Well, this is like Paul coming against, or not coming against, sorry. This is like the reverse of the curse given at the garden right here. Whenever I read the curse, I think it's like women will strive to rule over men, but men will rule over you. And I get the sense that men, they kind of want to be lazy in the garden. That's why God says you will have to work. Cursed is the ground, you will toil. And it's like, this is the reverse of that. It's like he's saying, listen, you gotta bear that cross. You have to.
It could be said that original sin came because Adam was an egalitarian, even though it wasn't created that way. Because basically, Adam lets his wife battle the serpent. Adam should have stepped in as a leader, and he didn't. He didn't. And therefore, then, he was convinced to sin not by the serpent, but by his wife.
Yeah.
And this is why God, after he gives down the punishments, he's like, listen, he's going to rule over you. And in the Old Testament, you do see more of a ruling where the woman has no say. They don't seem like they're equal in dignity, or they're not treated equally in dignity. But in the New Testament, Paul's saying, like, yeah, husband, you are still the head, but your job is to die. Just like Christ died. You need to love your wife, not as a slave, but as you love your own body.
Yeah, being a man back then and hearing that, like, what? Wait, what?
Yeah. And
I'm supposed to die? Like, wait, hold on. No, let's back up. This is my property, isn't it? Yeah. And
some men can quote half of that verse and take it like that, and they're losers. But now here's the other question then, like as far as the egalitarian viewpoint, we're all equal and rule and things like that, which obviously Peter talks about and calls the woman the weaker sex, the weaker gender, and how men need to treat them with care. So like I was talking to Sister Eva last week or whatever, and we were talking about this topic, and I like her. She's like, a lot of men or a lot of people claim to be egalitarian, but she's like, but they're not. She goes, do you think women should be drafted if men are drafted? Like even like, we were bringing up the point, like if I'm in bed with my wife in the middle of the night and we hear a noise, should I be like, listen, honey, I went out last time to check what that noise is in case somebody's in the house. Now, this time it's your turn. Like, does that make me progressive? Does that make me like, oh, wow, look, I'm so hip. I'm so woke, No, it makes me, in the Latin phrase, adducius bagus, okay?
I haven't heard that. What does that one mean?
Yeah. You have to
coward?
Go on Google Translate for that. But it makes me a loser if I go to do it. It makes me not taking my position. So we understand, like, there are gifts that women have that men don't have.
Sure. See, I think we frame this as if I was an egalitarian. And, like I said at the beginning, I don't know. Maybe I might be more. I'm not decided entirely. But in a lot of things, if we frame the words egalitarian meaning you have to believe that they're completely the same, like, and they can do anything, then no, I wouldn't be. Because you're right. I don't think women should be drafted, and I don't think I should send them out to look at in the middle of the night. Yeah. I think I should be the last one on the Titanic, right? I mean,
so you would say, would you have a problem saying they're equal in dignity, equal in value, but they're not equal in nature? Like, there's more of a distinction between men and women than just their genitalia.
Yeah, I would say that. But I would say they're equal on all counts, they're different. That's all. They're just different.
Now, would you say they're different, like men and women are different? They're equal, but they're different in a way to where they actually unite. Would you say that they complement each other in their differences?
That's a good question. Yeah.
I think it's very obvious.
Of course
biblically.
they do. Biblically, yeah, you're right. There's no doubt that men and women are to complement each other. That's true.
And there's just they're equal in dignity, but there's certain positions in the church that are only for men.
And I think that's the thing, is that sometimes we think, when we hear that, I think people think, well, it means women can't have any position whatsoever. And it's like, well, no, that's just not true.
And obviously it's going to be different than in the Catholic point of view than it's going to be in your church's point of view. Like, so example, like, we just don't throw out the certain words. So like sometimes I remember at my old church, years ago, they would start off, they would have women pastors, and then women pastor was just more for like women. And I would still be cautious using that term. I would have no problem saying there's a woman for a certain position to other women to talk to, certain things, I admit, like certain things, like me as a guy, I go to confession and I'm confessing to another guy, and sometimes you're almost like, you can hear like, dude, yeah, I get it, man. It's hard, but I could see it being more difficult for a female to go. But so a female could find another female that, say it's a nun or somebody they can go and get, seek advice from. And the Catholic Church says, yeah, that's cool. That woman can never be in the position to where she's going to stand in persona Christi and actually absolve your sin, because they are not connected to the authority of penance, jurisdiction, their church discipline, like they're not tied into that position. But we could have women saints, women who, like, look, what created being do we think is holier and better than all other created beings? We say, the Blessed Mother. We don't believe that there's a created man who was holier or should be held in more esteem than Mary. Mm-hmm. But we would never say Mary could be a priest. She's a totally different, she's a female. And it's a different position. A man's never going to be the Theotokos. A male's never going to be the bearer. They're not going to give birth to our Lord. That's not going to happen either. They're equal, but they're different.
Yeah.
Now, one of the verses that's used by a lot of egalitarians to kind of prove their point comes from Galatians. And in Galatians here, this is Galatians chapter 3, verse 26. Okay, Paul's going to say, so in Christ Jesus, you are all children of God through faith. For all of you who were baptized into Christ have clothed yourself with Christ. There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, nor is there male and female. For you are all one in Christ Jesus. And if you belong to Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise.
Well, now after hearing that verse, I'm an egalitarian.
Now you switched back.
Yeah, now I have to be.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Back and forth. Almost like this one saying from Paul that seemingly people use to show that he contradicted all of his other sayings that we just read.
Yeah,
this is
good.
where people take this verse. Now, what is Paul meaning here? What Paul is meaning is you have to understand in the Old Testament, if you were viewed if you were a woman, you did not have the same dignity as a man. Also, if you were a Gentile, you were literally viewed as a dog, as a piece of crap. Mm. And if you were a slave, then you were viewed as bad. Mm-hmm. So a free male Jew, man, you just really had it going on. And they could really look at, disrespect towards anybody else. So you could even see this in the apostles. They're like, oh my gosh, Jesus is speaking with this Samaritan woman. What the heck's all that about? And they couldn't believe, that he's doing this. Now, Paul was saying to these people, listen, if you're a male, free Jew, and you're in Christ, your salvation is no greater than a Gentile slave woman. That's a radical teaching, that this Gentile slave woman can actually be grafted into Israel. Yeah. That's what Paul's saying. Now, we could take it to mean like, he's saying that there's no male or female, there's no gender. And again, if we're going to take it that way,
sounds quite woke.
Sounds woke. And if you go woke, you go broke. And if that's the case, then we could use that same argument to prove to okay homosexuality, transgenderism. Like, there's no difference. There's neither male nor female. That's what Paul said. So why can't I marry Billy? Well, he's a man, but there is no male, female. Don't you read the Bible? Yeah. And we could take this out of context, but that's not what Paul is saying. Mm-hmm. And we remember, this saying there's neither male nor female. This is coming from the guy who wrote more about the necessity of having the male in the church leadership than anybody else. So this is not what he's meaning.
Well, and supposing something I think about when I put all this together, supposing we're right and that complementarianism is right. Supposing that's true, it makes a lot of sense that people still want it. It's just like the garden. We want what we can't have or what we shouldn't have, perhaps for good reason. Like, I don't know why it should or shouldn't be certain ways, but in the end, I got to trust that God knew what he was doing.
Yeah. And I think that's what Paul's trying to say is like, God created man first, and then the woman came from man. Mm-hmm. And that this is great. And he made woman for man, and man is meant to be a supportive person towards the woman also. But
it's like helper. Is helper any less? It's the same word they use for the Holy Spirit. I can't imagine that it's a bad word then.
Right. And the Catholic Church has no problem saying that in a certain way we're both helpers towards each other. But I think that there is a danger in egalitarianism, not just for the church, but for even as it creeps into the family structure. Like,
we're seeing that already.
Yeah, and we talked about the other day, like the statistics that, like, if you're a woman, if you're a mother, and you are the main force that's taking your kids to church, and the husband or the father is not really a participant in it, your chances that those kids will grow up and be a weekly churchgoer is really not that high.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've seen those statistics, and I can't remember them all right now, but I remember thinking, wow, it says that if the man is converted, the chances that the rest of the people, the women, the wife and the kids start going to church,
it's like 90%.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It's amazing, and this is why, like, men need to take this responsibility. And I also then feel bad because, like, when I see, I have 90% of the people come to my Bible study are females. When I see this, or when I see more women at church, I don't look at them like, oh, look, they're coming to a Bible study because they think they're special, or look, they're going to church and men's supposed to be. I get upset with the males. Like, what are you doing? You're. It's no different than when Adam neglected his duty and he allowed the serpent to snatch and destroy and to deceive the wife. And men are actually allowing Satan to deceive their whole family out of laziness. But I think we have to be careful because as it creeps into the church or into even the family structure, I think it could do damage. And we've actually seen in most of your conservative churches that are in the different branches, like Catholicism is very clear. Like Catholicism, we've had women who went and had, ordinations to be ordained a priest. And the Catholic Church actually says, like, yeah, if you do that, you're out. You're not Catholic, and we actually will not bury you in the Catholic Church. Like, you're out. It's not like you got to go to confession. No, you're out. You're out. You're excommunicated. Like, that's how strict they are. And even, like, when Pope Francis comes out real strict like that, like, like, you're doing some stuff that's really jacked up. But when you look at a lot of these branches, like, you look at Lutheran branches, there's Lutheran, sects that have only male ordination, then there's ones that have female. You could see this in, different Protestant traditions. And it seems typically the ones that allow gay marriage and actually will participate in ceremonies for gay marriage are usually the ones that come from that also have the female ordination.
Well, that's the problem with it. If something's done because of egalitarianism, for the sake of it, you get to those problems. Like, I'm not going to, I don't have a problem with every single, woman pastor. Maybe perhaps I have a problem with how it got there. That would be more of my focus, I think. Because if you're doing it for the sake of egalitarianism, you're going to end up with the homosexuality, the transgender, the LGBTQ churches. And that's not good.
Yeah, and I want to say this. Like, I know women pastors. And if you're listening to this, like, I don't think, like, oh, God hates you and you're a piece of crap and, you're doing horrible stuff. I think the people preaching and teaching is good. I think females doing this. I think that there's a lot of females who have these positions. They love God. I will admit, as a Catholic, I don't, we're getting into apostolic succession. And even the names people are going to bring up, deaconesses or people that are going to supposedly female apostles from the New Testament. You're never going to see these people with apostolic successions, people laying hands on them. There's no biblical evidence for that. Saying somebody sent, like Mary Magdalene, was an apostle to the apostles. Like, yeah, she's sent. That's what the word apostle means. Somebody sent. She was sent to go tell the apostles, hey, Jesus is alive. This did not mean she took on apostolic succession. She's not an apostle in that sense of church leadership. And people try to, like, use that terminology in a sleight of hand thing. But that, seeing a female who had hands laid upon her and then took this leadership position in the church, you will not find that in the New Testament church.
Priscilla. I mean, I know it doesn't say specifically. I don't think it says she had hands laid on her.
That's what I'm saying. You won't.
It definitely appears as if she had the apostolic authority, though. She was like a leader with Aquila.
No, and there could be people who were, like, hosting home communities, or maybe their home was open up, or they even provided like financial need.
Roman Church, though. That's what it sounds like.
I don't know about that.
That's probably where
I don't think you see any sacramental thing, and there would be because that would have to totally contradict Paul's whole teaching.
Or we would have to re-understand what we see there. We have to figure out a new understanding of it. That's
Yeah, but does it clearly? And this is where the clarity versus speculation comes in. Does it clearly show that they had hands laid upon them and that they were doing sacraments and actually had the ability to excommunicate things like? No. Somebody could, possibly could. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah, it's possible.
They might have ate a Snickers bar, every Saturday.
Less
we
possible,
don't know. But does it clearly show, does the Bible clearly say that Paul basically forbids that type of leadership authority with women? I would say, yeah, that's not speculative. That's clear. I want to end with this. This is from the Catechism of the Catholic Church. This is
Before you do.
Okay, go ahead.
Because you get the last word. It's your podcast. I would like to say that one thing I really appreciate about my church is the strong male presence at the Church of the Rock. Seeing all the men there, because a lot of times it is the women who go to church. Not so here in Poland's Church of the Rock.
Yeah, no, and I know there's a lot of good guys there, and a lot of smart guys there as well.
Yeah,
I think a lot of those guys like Mark and stuff, Nick, Reed, sent good fatherly examples, involved with their kids, involved with things like that.
I wish I was one of the smart ones. That'd be cool.
Well, yeah. You know what you should do? You should do something that proves that you're smarter than everybody. Convert to Catholicism, and then they'll be like, "Oh, you are smart."
Maybe I should go on a TV show without researching the people. That'd be
now we're throwing stones. Okay, this is in paragraph 369, the Catechism of the Church, and it's under the section of male and female, and it's equality and difference willed by God. So man and women have been created, which is to say, willed by God. On the one hand, in perfect equality as human persons. On the other, in their respective beings as man and woman. Being man or being woman is a reality which is good and willed by God. Man and woman possess an inalienable dignity which comes to them immediately from God, their creator. Man and women are both with one and the same dignity in the image of God. In their being man and being woman, they reflect the Creator's wisdom and goodness. God created man and woman together and willed each for the other. The Word of God gives us to understand this through various features of sacred texts. It is not good for the man that he should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him. None of the animals can be man's partner. The woman God fashions from the man's rib and brings him elicits on the man's part a cry of wonder, an exclamation of love and communion. This at last is the bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. Man discovers woman as another I, sharing the same humanity. Man and woman were made for each other. Not that God left them half-made and incomplete. He created them to be a communion of persons in which each can be a helpmate to the other. For they are equals as persons, bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh, and complementary as masculine and feminine. In marriage, God unites them in such a way that by forming one flesh, they can transmit human life, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. By transmitting human life to their descendants, man and woman, as spouses and parents, cooperate in a unique way in the Creator's work. Then it goes on to say how they share and they have a dominion over creation. But this is basically showing how this is the complementarian viewpoint that they're created equal. They're equal in dignity, but they're different. And while they're equal, man and woman, male and female, is something that's part of the will of God. There's a reason that God did not just create this one unisex gender that can procreate with itself. And it's not limited to their sexual faculties or their sexual parts and why they're different. So equal in dignity, equal in value, both created in the image and likeness of God. And yet, when it comes to the church structure and the home structure, which is the mini church, it's just showing that there is a certain position that God has for the man Just like he has certain positions that God has made the female for. So, what do you think about that?
It sounds good to me, man.
Did you switch at all? If somebody asked you right now, would you be like, I'm more of a complementarian, not set in stone?
Yeah, I would say this is one of those areas where I just go back and forth on constantly. You know?
Make up your mind, man. That's part of being a male. You just make up your mind, go with it, even if you're wrong. You know what I mean? That's the key. All right, guys. Thanks for watching this. If you're a woman, don't hate me. I'm for you. I'm for you. So this is Nick Nolfi, the Catholic OCD Podcast. Thanks for Curtis coming. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I just got this new thing, so it's fun to do. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and peace out.